had, 5 or 6 days of rest. Mm-hmm. And you were coming off this tough emotional series, 7-game series that ended just 2 days ago. So you knew it would be a tough chore to go in there and win game one. And Clippers fans can tell themselves, as well as the players, hey, we almost won that game with our two best players struggling. Kawhi Leonard had 23 points, 9 of 19. For him, that's not a great night. And Paul George shot 4 for 17, even though he had 20 points and played well in the fourth quarter with 13 points. But George struggled. So all of that happened, and you still had a chance to win the game at the end. That said, I did see some things that would give me concern if I'm a Clippers fan. Number one, you saw that Mike Conley didn't play either. So you can talk about Paul George and Kawhi struggled, but Mike Conley wasn't playing. Conley's a, all-star level. He's never made an all-star team, but he's right below the all-star level type player. He's very good on both ends of the floor, and he's another guy that can penetrate off the dribble and create for himself and his teammates. So you had one guy to worry about that could do that last night. Jordan Clarkson, yes, off the bench, he's a nice scorer. But for the most part, you had one guy to worry about as far as creating his own stuff, and that was Donovan Mitchell, and we saw he went for 45. Go back to last series. You had one guy to worry about that was creating all the offense, Luka Doncic, and he went off on the Clippers. Now, last night, same thing, one guy. When Conley gets back, whether it's game 2 or game 3, he's going to be another guy you've got to worry about. So that could open things up. Not that he needs it, but open things up even more for Donovan Mitchell. And then you've got the shooters to surround him. So that's a cause for concern. And then Paul George, 4 for 17. I mentioned it earlier. He is not hitting shots at all. He was 5 for 15 in game 7 against Dallas, 6 for 15 in game 6. Over the last 3 games, he shot 32% from the floor. I know he's had his moments. He's hit a couple of big shots. I mentioned the 13 points last night in the fourth quarter. But I'm not sure you can beat Utah with Paul George shooting like this consistently. They're going to need him to step up and be a legitimate wingman for Kawhi. I'm not worried about Kawhi. Kawhi will bounce back starting in game 2. But Paul George has got to give them a little more consistency on the offensive end for them to prevail. I got them in 7, so I expect a long, tough series, but they're going to need a consistent Paul George to play well for them.
I don't know why the Clippers would be encouraged, considering that had they been blown out, they could have used the excuse we had tired legs, we played game 7. But, Chris, they were up 13. Utah missed 20 straight shots. You could have buried them. That was your opportunity. You could have buried them. Spider Mitchell had 13 points at the half. Nobody on Utah was playing particularly well in the first half. That was your opportunity to send the death knell blow. And they didn't. Mitchell gets it going. The difference between Dallas and Utah, obviously the record, you say, if you want to say Donovan and Luka are push, but the difference is the surrounding players. Those guys will make shots early and they will make tough shots late. Bogdan didn't. Joe Ingles was 3 of 14. So what happens when he heats up? Let me get my shark too much. Mm-hmm. Joe Ingles was 3 of 12. 1 of 8. Bogdanovich was 6 of 14. You know they gonna shoot better than that next go around. Now, Chris, you keep telling me they're elite wing defenders. Now, Luka had 3 40-point games and a 39-point game. Luka also had a 42-point game in March. Zach LaVine dropped 45 on him. We see Donovan Mitchell had 46. What's going on with that defense? Paul George, you mentioned, he was 7 of 15 in game 5, 6 of 15, 5 of 15, 3 of, 4 of 14. Come on. And you keep saying, he gonna turn it around. Are we sure about that? Are we sure? He keep passing up big shots. Chris, you ain't mentioned it, but you saw 2 guys pass up a shot and say, Marcus Morris, you take it. We don't want it. Because I know if somebody else had done that, he'd be up here pounding the table. If you the GOAT, you got to take that shot.
So wait, you're saying Kawhi Leonard is better than LeBron James?
I can't tell.
Oh.
I can't tell.
Interesting.
Chris, you've been with Skip a lot longer than I have. When have he ever allowed LeBron to use the excuse of being tired? Oh, he played 7 games.
Not a once.
Not one time. You remember LeBron played 7 games against Boston his last year in Cleveland?
Yeah.
And then dropped 51 in the opening game against Golden State.
Yeah.
And you talked about, well, LeBron quit. He's separated from his team. But I'm going to let you have your little moment. But you're going home in 5. And we got 5 on it.
Yes,
5 for 5.
Kawhi Leonard invented load management with some help from Greg Popovich. So I first guessed this for the record, and this man also picked Utah to win this game last night.
I did, of course.
And I think you thought Utah would win handily, and they should have won handily because Kawhi Leonard was literally running on empty last night, or trotting on empty, or crawling on empty, because I think that whole team was psychologically gassed from what I believe was the greatest comeback in NBA playoff history against the Dallas Mavericks. It took every ounce of heart and soul for them to climb out of the holes they kept digging for themselves at Staples, where they lost games, 1, 2, and 5.
Yep.
It's impossible what they did against Luka and company, and it took Kawhi being Jordan-esque in game 6 and 7, and he was shot. He was spent more psychologically than physically. And I think they came into last night thinking, well, we deserve one game, quote unquote, off. And they were shocked to find in the first half that Utah missed 20 straight shots.
20 straight.
20 straight shots. So I told Shannon earlier today, maybe a more veteran team, maybe a team that had won a couple of championships together would have gone in at halftime and said, hey, wake up. They don't want this. They're trying to give it to us. We have a chance to steal game 1. Let's take game 2 off mentally and physically, but let's not take the second half off. And instead, they came out and said, okay, we gave you one good half. That's all we have left. And they let Donovan Mitchell go off on them for 16 in the third and 16 in the fourth.
They ain't let him. He did it.
Well, again, watch what happens in game 2, because he's going to see a whole different scheme coming at him. He's going to be seeing double because there are going to be 2 Clippers on him, and they'll make Joe Ingles beat him because I don't think he can beat them.
I do.
Okay, well, we'll see about that. You've got Utah in 5 games,
yeah.
So you're about to get in some big trouble, because I was mightily encouraged by what I saw last night from a Clippers team that was up 13 and a half, but hung on when I thought it was going to get blown out the door at Utah, and they actually had a last shot to tie it. Well, what's not to love about that?
That was your best chance to steal game 1. Everybody always try. What did Atlanta do? What do you normally try to do, Chris? You normally try to steal the first game on the road. You get that first one out of the way.
Or the second one.
But I love how you try to do that. You keep saying, well, they don't have championship experience. Mm-hmm. You got Kawhi that's won a championship. You got Rondo that's won a championship. Yep. You got T. Lue on the bench that's won a championship.
They won them together?
Hold on.
No.
But that's what Tom Brady. Tom Brady was the only one, and Gronk, the only one that had championship experience. Mm-hmm. And you said that bled into the locker room. Okay, let that bleed into the locker room.
I'm talking about the GOAT of your sport, Tom Brady. They don't have a GOAT. Kawhi's not the GOAT. I never said Kawhi was GOAT. No,
you just said Kawhi is on par. You just said yesterday Kawhi is on par with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is the best player on the planet.
Again, Chris said that yesterday, that they're vying for best player on the planet.
Stop it.
Well, that's what Chris said. Am I right, Chris?
Don't do that, Chris.
It's open. Joel Embiid is up in there.
Yeah.
It's open.
What's open?
Let's see what happens these playoffs. Best player on the planet right now. Best player on the planet is open.
KD getting
it's open right now.
Right, the best player, because we doing this in the playoffs, because the other guy decided the playoff, they shouldn't get any mention.
All right, let's go back to Kawhi. I'm going to be objective, and I'm going to be very critical of my man Kawhi Leonard, because he took a step back in best player on the planet competition right now.
He ain't
because
in the room anymore.
At the end of the game, if we could see the final sequence, your man Donovan Mitchell, he has a chance to nail the dagger. He takes a 2-point shot, and he was up, and he was way short on this one because Rondo got the rebound, and I'm thinking, I got playoff Rondo. I got a new quarterback. Make a play. Get somebody an open three, and he does a dribble handoff to Kawhi, who dribble handoffs to Paul George, back to Kawhi, and he doesn't want that over Joe Ingles. He doesn't want that over Joe Ingles, and it winds up in the hands of Marcus Morris, who wound up 1 of 9 from 3 for the game. It's almost like the Clippers go as Marcus goes, because he made 7 of 9 in Game 7, and he's 1 of 9 from 3 last night, including that disaster at the end of the game. Kawhi has to take the shot. But I've also said Kawhi's not a great three-point shooter, and this is nothing but a three-point, because you're down 3, you got to take one. Kawhi doesn't trust himself from 3 because, as you pointed out earlier, he's a line drive shooter. He doesn't have that range. You put him at 16 or 18 feet, yeah, he's